Okay, we are now live streaming. Yeah, and I cannot move anybody over from attendees.
I got it. I can take care of that.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Rest.
Morning.
Madam Chair, if you'd like to get started, I think we almost have folks here, and I know a couple are running late, stuck in traffic, and a couple of folks, Rodney and Marjorie, will not be attending.
Okay, great. Well, good morning, everyone. Let's go ahead and get started this morning. We'll call this meeting to order. Our first piece of business, as you may recall, during our last meeting, we adopted the Community Schools Forward Community School Framework. And that means we'll be shifting our meeting structure to align with that. And our first topic will be focused on supportive infrastructure. So Danette, please take it away.
Thank you. So Chloe, if you could advance, or Deanna, start if you could advance the screen. So as we talked about in the last meeting, the community school essentials, it's really about the essential requirements to see transformation at the school level. And by transformation, we're not trying to transform the people, we're trying to transform the way that we deliver what we deliver within a school community. And as you can see, this gear, the gear on the right-hand side of your screen has all of the different pieces. The supportive infrastructure is what the ABC team, the internal APS community school team, the folks that are dedicated to supporting schools on the ground and doing the day-to-day business of community school development and policy work, where we focus our time and effort. And as you can see around the dark blue outside, that is the supportive infrastructure piece. And it encompasses things like shared governance structures, continuous improvement, data systems, policy in regards to sustainable resources, strategic partnerships, and professional learning. So we wanted to highlight a couple of the things that we've been focused on the last couple months, either developing or have done in the last couple months. And the first of those is professional learning opportunities. And Deanna is going to talk a little bit about what we have coming up and what the team across the APS folks and the ABC team have been working on. You're on.
My unmute was difficult to find. And sorry, I can't tell if Brian is, yes. Okay, so Brian, if you want to also join me on this one. So as you may or may not know, since the dawn of time of community schools in Albuquerque, when I was a community school coordinator, we have had a monthly professional development that was started like very long time ago. We call it the Huddle because our former executive director was a professional football player. And so all of our things had football related names. And it's been a 3-hour professional development for community school coordinators for the last, honestly, 12 years. It's almost always been on the third Friday of the month. And we are very excited that at our huddle tomorrow, the third Friday of September, we're going to be instituting a new era of professional development opportunities, which is not only have we invited all 63 community school coordinators that are in Albuquerque Public Schools, but also the 12 community school coordinators in the charter schools that we support. And Brian.
Thank you so much, Deanna, with a little bit of a drum roll and some real excitement that we are proud to let you know we are inviting all 63 principals within APS and all of our charter school principals as well. So I know this is something that you all as a board have always inquired about. Principals have also spoken very intently around being part of the learning. And so we are going to kick off that new era tomorrow morning at Bonifacio from 9 to 12 for some collaborative leadership learning. Thanks, Deanna, for letting me share my excitement with the board.
Sure. We are all extremely excited about this opportunity to have principals and coordinators co-learning and really give them some time to strengthen that critical first partnership and really discuss, just the strategy of implementing the community school framework within their schools. That's all I had, Danette.
Thank you. I just want to recognize that Brian, Deanna, Robert, Chloe, Alex have all been working really hard to ensure that the learning is really a value add to the understanding of the partnership, as well as how we align all this work, all of the things we say we do, to align to the results that the schools are being expected to achieve. And they have spent a lot of hours trying to make this really, really high quality and take a lot of different moving pieces and put them into one approach. So kudos to them, and we'll let you know how it goes in the next board meeting. Go ahead and move on. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Brian to talk a little bit about a new and exciting thing that we have done. As you all know, ABC worked with Communities in Schools New Mexico and NEA New Mexico to to receive and support the work of a congressionally directed spending award that really focused on developing a network of professional development and technical assistance across our state. And two of those big contracts that we really engaged strategically were the Institute for Educational Leadership in partnership with the Public Education Department at the time to look at principal support. And then also one around policy, which I will talk about in a little bit. But I want to turn it over to Brian because he is, as you can see on the left-hand part of the screen, intimately involved with participating in this process. Brian?
Thank you so much, Danette. Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, very excited to share some thoughts on the SWIFT Community School Partner Principal Fellowship, and certainly on behalf of the 23 community school principals participating within the local area. And as you see to the left, two of my colleagues who are also instructors, just really grateful to the SWIFT team and group for this opportunity. And like I said earlier, there's been a demand and input and feedback from principals to continue to learn and deepen their knowledge of the strategy. And so we did kick off this fellowship earlier this week. Lots of excitement, lots of smiles that you see on the screen there from everyone, lots of hearts. And so just real quickly, letting you know that this first week of the fellowship really grounded the group in really seeing what the foundational understanding is of collaborative leadership. The piece that was also critical to that is the idea of building trusting relationships, in the sense that some of the work that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks independently is going back into our schools with a core group of staff, including our community school coordinators, to really build an asset-based type of effort underlined by trust to really recognize how we move that collaborative leadership forward. And so we're looking at also culture, systems, and structures, and really seeing how those can be leveraged to support collaborative leadership and transformation. And then we also have a mapping tool that was designed by IEL and SWIFT to really guide us through the 8-week process, so that by this end of the 8 weeks, they really have a practitioner-based, really in-depth understanding and tools that they can use to move their strategy and transformation forward. So again, we're very excited, and we'll stand for any questions or additional comments. Back to you, Danette.
Does anyone have any questions about the Principal Fellowship or comments?
I just have a quick question, Brian. What is the maximum number of principals that you can have in this fellowship?
And I may defer to Danette, but I understand we were aiming for 50, and I think we're at 49 at this time.
That's good. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Yes, and I think, one of the things about this fellowship and what we utilize some of our award for is to front and center, give principals a stipend for being a part of this and doing this work above and beyond their day-to-day work that they already do. That is a lot of work. And then also each school, there's 2 micro credentials. So this is starting the first one, and then the second one will be in the spring. And there'll be a small award for the school to, work on some of the projects that the fellowship is requesting of them during the process. So one of the things that we will be working with SWIFT on, because we do represent in the Albuquerque area, a little less than 50% of everyone, is trying to find some funding to continue this type of effort where we can engage folks. I think the value add is going to be pretty great, regardless, and people will likely participate in it, but we know that principals often get left out of any of those sort of agreements where there's additional compensation, and it is work, right? It's work that that they're taking on to better their practice within their school and work, and hopefully work more effectively and feel more comfortable in the shared leadership, shared voice component of community school development. So I do want to say thank you to Brian, Sean, and Emery for jumping in and participating in this so that we can also create a sustainable system in Albuquerque where, no matter what direction things go. Next slide, Jim.
Okay, and I do want to just mention, if anybody on the webinar today has questions about this principal fellowship, please feel free to contact either Danette or Brian, and they'll be happy to share further information. I believe there's going to be additional cohorts, right, besides this first one.
That is the plan.
Okay.
Thank you. So the next part is really around our strategic partnerships and sustainable funding. And this is our partnership with the Learning Policy Institute. This was a big piece of our work when we launched, when we started out, in just looking at how are we going to sustain this transformation permanently, not sustain it for now or wait till the funding runs out and then everything stops. And part of that work was really working with LPI, who is an incredible, is an incredible research team, particularly around community schools. They were critical in developing the Community Schools Forward work with the collaborative team across the country. They have done a number of research papers, white papers, policy briefs in New Mexico. So they have really intimate knowledge of the work we do and very much value that local wisdom. So they have finished their brief around long-term sustainability and impact around community schools. What we've done the last couple of weeks is we have supported, we being ABC, supported the SWIFT community school team, board members and LPI in briefing the Legislative Education Study Committee and Legislative Finance Committee staff, as well as the New Mexico Public Education Department, Secretary of Education, deputy secretaries and staff, the New Mexico Coalition for Community Schools, and the statewide team from Senator Heinrich's office here in New Mexico. We have a few we're still working on, the governor's office, the staff of the governor's office, as well as hopefully the staff from the DC office for Heinrich and potentially Lujan, to just really showcase this amazing work that they did. You can go to the next slide, Jana. The takeaways, you all did receive this in your board packet email, but the takeaways really are not surprising, I think, to this board. We have been talking about these types of things for quite some time, and understanding with a network of over 70 schools that we have a pretty good handle on what's happening on the ground. It was wonderful to see this research really come out and support what we thought we knew. LPI did do a number of individual interviews with different role groups across our state when they came through this, including Albuquerque folks. And there were a number of community conversations that were held to give input. First was providing sustainable funding for community schools. We have known this for a long time, that it's hard to keep consistency and slow the mobility if we don't have sustainable funding for, at minimum, the community school coordinator. Collect and use data to support community school implementation and assessment of impact. Implementation matters. In order for this strategy to be effective, the implementation has to be done well and in alignment with what the research says will be impactful. So looking at constructing an identifier, some sort of way to know what we should be seeing in community schools over time, setting realistic expectations for progress and outcomes, knowing that the community school strategy, when it's a transformative strategy, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a single school year, and having benchmarks to measure where people should be, where schools should be at what point in time, and what type of outcomes we should be seeing at that point in time. And then also leveraging existing data and accountability processes. LPI heard loud and clear. Schools are under a lot of pressure to report data in about 1,000,009 different ways. And adding one more of those things is not going to be helpful. So how do we leverage the existing mechanisms for collecting and viewing it? But also, how do we use that to determine whether or not we're on track as a part of this process? Expanding the capacity building infrastructure. The whole purpose of the CDS project was to look at this because we had heard loud and clear from principals and coordinators alike through the PED echo sessions that they needed more support. In Albuquerque, there's ABC. Nowhere else is there that level of support in our state. NEA New Mexico supports a lot of the rural schools, but they're not embedded in that community. So we knew that this was a part of the work, and it was affirmed with this report to formalize. And part of that is also what they heard was the definition of community schools, the understanding around the state differs. And so that we really need to formalize a definition of what that strategy what the strategy means, and what people's understanding is, so that we can align the supports to those schools. Having some type of standards, what are the bottom lines in New Mexico that we say, you aren't a community school unless these things happen. And whether it's, completely localized and we all just across the state agree upon it, or it's aligned with something else, is definitely an open discussion. And then offer differentiated learning opportunities, knowing that planning your schools are going to need a very different level and different type of support than maybe a school that has been implementing for 10 years, but just turned over a number of staff, a principal or a coordinator. In Albuquerque, we do that. The ABC team, the APS team work really hard to make sure that schools are getting what they need when they need it, and that we are meeting them where they're at. Consider developing a community school certification and recognition process. This is something that we in the Albuquerque area have been talking about for a few years. Something that really recognizes over time a staged way of determining whether or not a community school is ready to just be on their own. Our thoughts locally are a planning year and 3 to 4 years of implementation to really get the systems, structures, and practices in place before we have high expectations of sustainability. And part of that, what we are hoping to see is that leads to the sustainable funding source for at least the coordinator position. Knowing that we want to make sure that good implementation is always happening, and that we're just not writing a blank check and saying, yay, you're a community school, and we just let it go from there. We want to see this work for students, families, communities, and schools. The next piece that's in process, which is separate from LPI, is the House Memorial 44, which was supported by the New Mexico Coalition around the Community Schools Funding Task Force. This document, this report, the research that LPI has done, we are hoping will be the first launching point for the task force to review and start with, to really take into consideration and dig into what LPI gleaned from the statewide input around these topics. The task force right now, from our understanding, is that there is a list of folks. There has been a chair assigned. It hasn't been made public yet. But it will include LFC, LESC staff, public education department staff, and 3 members of the New Mexico Coalition for Community Schools that will be appointed by the chair, which is being directed by the Secretary of Education. Any questions on this work?
I just have one more, and this might go to Brian again. So when I'm like looking on the APS website, when it comes to the formalized definition, so the definition that is on the APS website, will that change, Danette? Is that something that you're looking at changing?
So as the definition, we have a formalized definition in some ways in the statute. But it isn't up to date. So what we're looking at is, when do we open the statute to really align it to the current research? And then yes, what we are aligning all of our work to, and as I mentioned, like no other district has the investment that APS has made, and Brian and Robert and others at times to really work to support community school development. And they definitely don't have a community-wide leadership team that looks like the ABC board. So we have constantly shifted and responded to the current research. So everything that we're doing here is in alignment with what likely would come out as the definition, because that's what's saying what's saying will create effective change and impact. So we will update all of those things. Right now, the state statute still essentially, it doesn't say pillars, but it essentially gives that definition. I don't see it changing too much from what we're doing, though, in the way that we do it. Excellent. Thank you. Back to you, Justine.
Thank you, Danette. Now we are going to move on to our community school bright spots, which will highlight 3 of the 6 key practices. And I will pass it to Deanna.
So we're, sorry, I'm prepared. We are very excited to recognize that 4 community schools in APS received recognition from New Mexico PTA and National PTA, and we are very happy to have Renata here this morning, I believe, to talk a little bit more about this program in particular and the special awards for these 3 schools. And Renata, we do have a separate slide for Chaparral, just so you know.
Thank you, Deanna. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the board. I really appreciate being able to talk about these schools and the amazing work that they have done. So last year, New Mexico PTA received a grant from National PTA, and it was a very small grant, just a couple of $1,000s. But we wanted to work with local schools, and the grant was really structured about the newly revised family school partnerships and the standards that are associated with those partnerships. So the 6 standards are welcoming all families, communicating effectively, supporting student success, speaking up for every child, sharing power, and collaborating with community. So we reached out to local PTAs that were that had a good leadership group already in place. They were in compliance, and they had a community school coordinator. We wanted to show how that partnership between the administration, between the community school coordinators, and the local parent group could really strengthen and, in some places, change the trajectory of the importance of family engagement and how we were engaging families. So we worked with Adobe Acres, Chaparral, East San Jose, and Manzano Mesa. And I'd like to highlight a few of the things that really stood out from these 4 schools that were all awarded the School of Excellence program. And it's a pretty labor-intensive program. There is a pre-survey that is created that really asks information from the families in the community. It is sent to National PTA, and then the local PTA receives what is known as a roadmap back from National PTA. And that roadmap is customized to that individual school because the responses back are different from every school community. The roadmap highlights the things that are going really well in the school, and then talks about areas that that families expressed a need for improvement. The school then has between 4 and 6 months. The PTA is working with administration, working with the community school coordinators to affect change based on what the community has responded. And then there is a survey at the end of the school year to see whether families really noticed that there was any change. A lot of this is really focusing on, we're offering families to express their opinions. We're listening to their voices and to their concerns. We're affecting change. And then we're assessing to see, did we really make change that is evident to our families? So I wanted to highlight a couple of the topics that schools had worked on around those 6 standards. We asked them to pick 2 or 3 standards. So from East San Jose, they really felt that there was meaningful conversation held with families, that it wasn't just about, hi, come have a cup of coffee, hope you enjoy the coffee, see you next month, but really getting into the weeds of the importance of things that were happening at school. And that coffee event grew from 2% to 98% within the last school year, which I think is amazing. And I'd like to point out, because attendance is such a big issue for our state, their attendance numbers in August of 2022 were at 89%. In August of 2023, they were at 94%, which I think is a very large growth. And as an incentive, students that had perfect attendance were able to work with a local artist on creating a mural for their school. At Adobe Acres, communication with families had already always been a priority, but by participating in the School of Excellence, there was a shift made to really intentional communication, getting feedback, and giving equal share to family voice. And then the PTA meetings changed in that they now give time for the school administration. There's a specified block of time within their PTA meetings where the administrator can share information about the school as another way to keep families engaged in what is happening. So Deanna, if you would like to move to Chaparral. Thank you. So Chaparral Elementary, Chaparral received, out of 386 schools, the Phoebe Apperson-Hurst Family School Partnership Award of Merit, which is like second place out of 386 schools across the country. So this is a huge honor for them and for the work that was done within their school community. There were only 2 schools that were given that award of merit in the country. And so when you talk to somebody at Chaparral, please congratulate them, because this is a super big deal. On their first survey that they did, the pre-survey, when they were assessing families' participation, 61% of the families felt that school was a central part of their community. On their post survey at the end of the year, after they had worked and done all of the outreach to families and changes based on what families said, 91% of the respondents felt that their school was a central part of their community. That's a 30% growth. That is amazing. And I think the welcoming all families was really a central part of their work. All of the schools felt like there needed to be work done in engaging families and getting families back on campus, having families feel comfortable. And I think we can be very proud of these 4 community schools that have received the School of Excellence designation because they made it happen in a very intentional way. So my sincere congratulations to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Renata. And I did want to just read a short quote also shared from Dawn, who is the New Mexico PTA president, also here. Thank you for joining us. She says that she is a big cheerleader for these 4 amazing schools, as well as we all are, and just really so excited to see the community school strategy of powerful family engagement that is authentic, that really respects, as you said so eloquently, Renata, the voices, and then being responsive to the voices of those family members, and what a huge difference that makes. So congratulations to everyone. Is there anything anybody else from the board would like to add, or questions or thoughts?
Deanna, I just want to say hi to Renata and Dawn because it's kind of my old home, and this is really, really cool to see that there's 4 schools. I tried to do School of Excellence at our elementary school when I was PTA president a long time ago, and it is not easy. It's really not. I mean, it's easy on paper to be like, oh, we'll do a survey, and then we'll do another survey, and we'll do some work in between. But to get that engagement is really hard on any level when it comes to anything we do. People are not engaged because everybody's so busy. But this was really impressive. I'm very excited to see that there's these 4. So thank you for sharing, and it's good to see your face, my friend.
Thank you, Councilor Bassan. Superintendent Elder?
Just simply echoing Councilor Bassan, I think, just thanks for this work. And, you know, I love to hear about our schools when they're doing great. And it's so nice to be able to recognize that. Especially, I'm really impressed by the outcomes, especially that attendance change at East San Jose. What a remarkable difference they've come up with. I'll make sure I say something to that principal and his staff, because I just think that's so hard to move the needle on. People really don't understand what's going on with absences out in the world right now. And something happened after the pandemic. Somehow the attending school suddenly was seen as not absolutely necessary. And we're really struggling with how to get kids in. So cool program. Great result. Thank you.
Yeah, I just would also just want to give a second shout out to the coordinators. I know that when Renata and I have spoken, part of the, a critical piece of this success is that there is this point of contact that helps organize, structure, and the principal isn't responsible for this. The PTA president or PTA leader at that school isn't on their own, because the coordinator is there with the collaborative leadership structure, with that council. And they really have the opportunity to help coordinate all of that work for someone, so that the volunteers aren't the only ones working at it. And I think it, to Councilor Bassan's point, it's, that is the difference in these schools, right, from other schools that might be trying this. And I love that New Mexico PTA also trusts that when they're looking to do something, they're like, hey, we're the community schools in these areas, and they know that it's gonna work. It's gonna be, the people will be responsive. So for all of those, I see some of the coordinators from these schools, if not all, in the audience, in the attendees. I just want to give you a shout out and tell you thank you for being there, prioritizing, juggling all the things you juggle, and getting to this level of recognition across the board, right? That's just fantastic. And thank you, PTA, for always giving us the opportunity to connect these resources to the schools that really want them.
Well, we're going to continue some fun, happy updates. And our next key practice highlight is collaborative leadership, shared power, and voice. And we're going to be giving you a quick update on a very fantastic event that occurred last Friday that was related to the Federal Full Service Community School Grant Award that we received last October. So I'm going to turn over to Lindsay as the project director, and also board member Peterson. Lindsay, take it away.
Thank you, Deanna.
Hi, good morning. So as Deanna mentioned, and as you know, ABC was awarded a federal full service community school grant in a large part thanks to the advocacy and support of the board. So thank you so much for that. The project is called All Hands In, which speaks to the collaborative nature of the work that we're doing. Last Friday, we brought the whole All Hands In project team together for the first time this school year to work on creating our logic model. This is a requirement of the grant, but the convening also provided an opportunity to affirm our strategic direction and our collective commitment to the project, as well as to continue to develop relationships among the team. So the participants included ABC and APS representatives, as well as community partners. And I am going to turn it over to one of our participants, Ms. Barbara Peterson, to share a little more about the session.
Thank you, Lindsay. And just a tip of the hat to the entire ABC team, because it really is a huge effort to pull these schools together and to make that level of commitment. And so it was really exciting to be there. I think one of the things, from my point of view, that this project will address is one, no matter how hard we work and no matter what our commitment is, lives change, people's ability to stay at a school changes, that there is no guarantee of stability in a staff at a school at any level. And so that means that developing a real culture of seeing what a community school is and having not just one or two people participating and understanding, but really bringing in the entire staff as active participants in one way or another, really understanding what the work of the community school is, I think is really critical. And so that's one of the aspects of this work that I saw that I am truly excited about, because I think it'll change the way an entire school community, students, staff, families, see the work of the community school. And there's that level of commitment. And that's what I think will sustain our schools long term. And then the other thing is, as a policymaker, I too frequently see people wanting the silver bullet and not understanding the complexity of systems, and that something like community schools and looking at the essential practices, that's a web. Those are not things that you can just pick and choose and pull out. It's really the way that whole system works together. And I think that in terms of the kind of data that we need to collect and the kind of successful outcome we see for community schools, I think this really gives us an opportunity to develop, can't talk this morning, to develop, that it won't just be like the shiny things that rise to the top, but really giving staffs and the ABC team and the people involved in the project an opportunity to really dive in and to more carefully examine what these different aspects of the essential practices are and how they fit together, how we can align that with the goals and guardrails of the district. I mean, I kind of say over and over again, if we want the APS goals and guardrails to work, go to the model of a community school, because that's where that integration really can happen. And so I think this work is so exciting and really appreciate the work being done.
Lindsay, I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, or anyone else who has a comment or question. Brian?
Thank you so much. I also feel in a similar way to what Barbara was expressing in reference to how big our network is now, but the opportunity to take these 3 schools as a learning lab from a pipeline standpoint and be able to really see how all of those integrated systems of support and the process of transformation can really be looked at almost behind the glass kind of examination to really see what some of the best practices might be that we could replicate and scale across the network. And so what a great opportunity to really hone in and really see what's working well, what's maybe a really good outcome that we can take a look at, and celebrations that we can consolidate for everyone to benefit from.
Deanna, I'll just say one more thing. I just want to lift up again the schools that are involved with this project, the coordinators and the principals and the whole school staff. Their communities are working so hard. So it's Hodgen Elementary School, McKinley Middle School, and Del Norte High School. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Well, great. Well, I'll continue on with more really awesome news. So actually kind of going back to what Superintendent Elder was saying earlier about attendance and how something happened after the pandemic and schools are just really struggling with figuring out attendance. And so one of the key practices for community schools that we feel has the potential to have a big impact on attendance is this brand new practice that was just released in January. And so our schools are just kind of getting started with what this looks like in reality. And it's called the culture of belonging, safety, and care. And the theory behind it is that when students and families, and honestly, all of the staff that work in schools and community partners as well, feel like they are welcome at the school, as Renata mentioned with the PTA project, that they belong there, that their voice matters, that they will want to be there. And so that's the theory. And we are seeing that in action in tiny ways. I just wanted to recognize that the Fall Attendance Conference put on jointly by the United Way of North Central New Mexico, APS, and PED last week, I think it was, there was a lot of opportunity for community schools to shine. And as Renata mentioned, there was a shout out to specifically to East San Jose, who increased their attendance from 89% to 94%. There were 3 additional schools, Manzano Mesa being one of the community schools, that were recognized for reducing their chronic absenteeism by over 50% from 2021-22 to 22-23. And there were several other community schools that showed large amounts of growth in reducing chronic absenteeism. And we're hoping to bring you those data at a later time. And as you can see in this photo here, the community school coordinator from Garfield Middle School was invited to present in partnership with the public education department about a specific intervention that they implemented at Garfield that was looking at chronic absenteeism, and as well they looked at student in-school suspension rates. They identified a root cause by talking to parents, but to students and to staff, and then the community gathered together to do something about that root cause, and it had a tremendous impact on the amount of days of school that students were now present for because of the change that they made at that school. So they were invited to present that at the attendance conference. Adobe Acres Elementary Schools community school coordinator Ralph Pena was also invited to present at the conference about successful home visiting strategies and building those strong relationships between homes and schools and how that impacts attendance. And I put this little quote here from the community school coordinator at East San Jose because it's just so perfectly encapsulate what we're trying to do, which is the main thing we did was talk to families about changes in our school and listen to their voices. And then to add to that, they responded in all of these cases to what the families were and students were saying. And so we're really, really excited, and big shout out to all of the schools that were recognized and part of the attendance conference. And we're just so happy to be able to present these for you, and that we'll hopefully continue the great momentum that's been started with community schools around attendance. Danette or Justine, I'm not sure. Sorry.
Wonderful, thank you. Appreciate all the great news. Now I think we have one voting item. We would like to approve the September board meeting minutes. And so I will go ahead and ask for a motion.
I'll move to approve. This is Barbara.
Barbara?
I'll second that motion, Counselor Bassan.
Thank you, Counselor. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Appreciate that. And now it's the time of year when we celebrate the cornerstone of our community schools. So Monday kicks off the Community School Coordinator Appreciation Week. And we, as the ABC board, would like to formally recognize our Community School Coordinator Network. So we have a proclamation prepared that I would like to read to you now. This is designating the week of September 17th through September 23rd, 2023 as Coordinators Appreciation Week. Whereas educators and local communities, including policymakers, system leaders, and funders, envision community schools transforming themselves in ways that increase young people's engagement at school, boost their learning, improve their overall well-being, and prepare them for productive lives as adults. And whereas community schools also strive to enhance the well-being of engaged families and communities, and whereas community schools follow an evidence-based logic that grounds the strategy in bringing communities, families, and students together with educators to transform schools into community hubs, and whereas the community school strategy revolves around a continuous improvement cycle that includes planning, implementing, working toward impact and outcomes, and monitoring progress, all of which rely on a supportive infrastructure. And whereas community school coordinators are essential to implementing the strategy that builds successful community schools through the key practices of collaborative leadership, shared power and voice, powerful student and family engagement, expanded and enriched learning opportunities, rigorous community-connected classroom instruction, culture of belonging, safety and care, and integrated systems of support. And whereas community school coordinators, through their role, deliver a strong monetary return on investment for community schools and their communities, with one study citing a return of $7.11 for every dollar invested in the salary of a community school coordinator. And whereas National Community School Coordinators Appreciation Week, celebrated from September 17th through September 23rd, recognizes, raises awareness of, and celebrates the thousands of community school coordinators across the country and the critical role of community school coordinators in the success of students. Now, therefore, we, the board members of the Albuquerque-Bernalillo County Community School Partnership of New Mexico, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through 23rd, 2023 as Coordinators Appreciation Week in Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, New Mexico, to honor the community school coordinators diligently working to serve our students, families, and communities. So thank you for listening to that long proclamation. We're so excited to honor our community school coordinators in this way. And now, if there are any community announcements, please go ahead and put those in the chat at this time. And board members, does anyone have any announcements to share?
Madam Chair, I would like to just reiterate that what you see on the screen, that we invite everybody to stop by the huddle tomorrow. It's at Bonifacio, the APS Bonifacio Center at 11:45 to recognize the coordinators. If you're in the neighborhood, also you'll see in your chat for the panelists, there is a link to a Kudo board where you can send the coordinators a note, and everyone will be sharing that with them to recognize them, or anything you want to note to them for next week.
Wonderful.
Sorry, Madam Chair, I do have a community announcement. Garfield Middle School was named a Magnet School of America demonstration school. So congratulations. I know that was a lot of work, Garfield. So congratulations to them for that accomplishment.
Wonderful. Congratulations. Any other community or board announcements? Okay, well, our next meeting is October 12th at 8:45 a.m. on Zoom. So we look forward to seeing you there, and we will now adjourn this meeting.